So, down in Central Florida, a really fascinating story is unfolding. It involves a judge, a prosecutor, and a very powerful legal group, and it's making people ask some tough questions about fairness in the justice system. Let's break it down. First up, you have Circuit Judge Diego M. Madrigal III. He's a key figure in the criminal courts for Florida's Ninth Judicial Circuit, a really important job. Then, you've got State Attorney Andrew Bain. Now, he's the guy appointed by the governor, and his office is the one prosecuting the cases that land in front of judges just like Madrigal. And the thing that might just tie them together? It's an organization called the Federalist Society. You've probably heard of them. They are a huge player in conservative legal circles, and their influence runs deep in America's justice system. So, what happens when all these lines start to blur? What does it mean for judicial neutrality, and maybe more importantly, for our trust in the system? That's exactly what we're going to get into. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the network itself. Then, the wild political scene it's all happening in. We'll dive into the Federalist Society's role, check out the actual ethical rules for judges, and finally, connect the dots on why this whole thing matters way beyond Florida. Okay, let's kick things off with the specific rumors that got this whole conversation started. They center on the judge's family and their professional ties. So the chatter is basically this, that Judge Madrigal's spouse not only works for State Attorney Bain, but is also a high-up in the local Federalist Society. But, and this is a huge but, none of this has been confirmed by public records. So the real story here isn't about whether the rumor is true. It's about the kind of system that makes a rumor like that sound so completely believable to people. Now, to really get why these allegations are so explosive, you have to understand the political pressure cooker they landed in. Florida's Ninth Circuit is, to put it mildly, a political hotspot. And here's a quick recap of the drama. Back in August 2023, Governor Ron DeSantis made a big move. He suspended the state attorney the people had elected, Monique Worrell. In her place, he appointed Andrew Bain. But then, fast forward to November 2024, and guess what? Worrell runs against Bain and wins her job back. And, it wasn't even a squeaker. Worrell took home almost 58% of the vote. That's a pretty clear message from the voters in that district, right? And this quote from Monique Worrell after her win, it just perfectly captures that tension between an executive appointment and what the people actually voted for. Okay, now let's talk about that organization that's kind of in the background of all these appointments, the Federalist Society. So what is the Federalist Society, anyway? Well, in short, it's a legal group that promotes the idea that the Constitution should be read exactly as the founders wrote it. And this isn't just some dusty academic theory. This philosophy has a real impact on court rulings, which is why everyone pays so much attention to its influence on who becomes a judge. And this is no small club either. We're talking about roughly 70,000 members across the country, from law students to seasoned attorneys. But here's the key. It's so much more than a professional organization. It really functions as a powerful pipeline, a kind of pre-vetted talent pool for conservatives who want top jobs in government, especially as judges. And you can see that influence at the very, very top. I mean, look at this list. At least 5 of the 9 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court are either current or former members. That's a lot of influence. Okay, so let's set the politics aside for a second. What are the actual rules for a judge when a potential conflict like this comes up? This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of legal ethics. The Florida Code of Judicial Conduct has this one line that is absolutely critical here. It says, a judge has to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. It's not just about being fair. You have to look fair to keep people's trust in the system. So what does that mean in plain English? It means if the public even thinks a judge might be biased because, say, their spouse works for the prosecutor, that's enough. The judge would have to recuse themselves, which means stepping away from the case entirely. And we're not talking about a small course correction. If these allegations were actually true, the judge would ethically be required to take some pretty drastic steps. We're talking about things like asking to be moved to a completely different division, like civil or family court, or just flat out recusing himself from every single case that comes from the state attorney's office. All right, so let's zoom out and put all the pieces together. Why does this whole story, a local issue with unconfirmed rumors, actually matter on a bigger scale? Well, here's the fundamental tension. On one hand, the whole point of the justice system is to be fair and impartial. But on the other hand, when you have these tight-knit networks connecting judges and prosecutors, it starts to chip away at public confidence. It makes people wonder if the scales of justice are really balanced. And that brings us to what might be the most important point of all. The real story here isn't whether the rumor is true, it's that it's so plausible. The fact that no one is really shocked by the idea tells you something profound about our legal system. It points to a pattern where these powerful networks can concentrate power, blurring the lines between different branches of government and shaking people's faith in the whole enterprise. And all of this leaves us with a final, really critical question. Our whole system is built on checks and balances, on keeping powers separate. So when political and judicial worlds start to merge through these powerful networks, who's left to guard the guardrails? It's a question that goes way beyond this one case in Florida, and it gets to the very heart of what we expect from our legal institutions.